Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 131 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Here we go.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you got a health issue that just won't go away no matter what you try? Then welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast, where we reveal the secrets to long-lasting health by getting to the root cause of problems that no one else is talking about. So you can have more energy, clear skin, healthier hair, a leaner physique, more confidence, and most importantly, do the things you love and live the life you deserve. Here's your host, Ryan Martin.
So everyone, welcome back to the show, episode 131. We're pushing on, we're punching on. Great to hear all the feedback we've had on our recent shows, getting lots of quality feedback that last episode. With the guys in Unit Fitness, really good, lots of comments on the videos on Facebook as well. And also the episode before with Jason Christoph, that is a really great episode. Before we get into today's episode, as always, today's show is sponsored by www.reviveyourself.co and our shop over there where you can get all the supplements that we recommend. Always talking about the things we've got from Evolution Organics, the Living Fuel, Super Berry and Super Greens, the two best all-round products on the market, bar none. Also, if you're going away, we've got our non-toxic sun creams there, body washes from Dr Brighten, toothpaste as well as different probiotics, and mushrooms, the lion's mane, which is a nootropic, which means you get phenomenal brain function as well as other things from Four Sigmatic. Absolutely fantastic. I'll put it into my morning dandelion root coffee and other teas I have in there as like a morning, morning elixir, which is really good, wicked. So I love. Also got our products from the Finchley Clinic, phenomenal things like MSM there. Different supplements there, including all the different teas we can have, Palo d'Arco, Quadrupedra, and we've got our Pearl. Excuse me, it's been an interview. Throat's a little bit. We've been talking too much. We've got our Pearl powder from Ancient Purity, which is an absolute health. Just a health boosting product that it does so many things. It's been used by the Tao in China for thousands of years, as well as in Ayurvedic medicine in India and all through Europe as internally something that can cleanse the body, help the liver detoxify, and topically, if you make it into a paste, put it on your skin to euthanize the skin, to get rid of blemishes. So a little noise there, get rid of blemishes. It's really good for soothing the thing, bringing out toxins and helping with anything like acne or spots, etc. Phenomenal for the body. It's also because it's nano powder. It's grade A. It comes from the best places on the planet. It's the purest you can get. I don't know if you saw my post about it the other day. It's a phenomenal health boosting product. If you haven't seen it, go to www.reviveyourself.co. I've got a post on there, or my Facebook page. You'll be able to see it. Also got our EMF blocking devices from Aries Tech. We've got ones for your car, for your laptop, your mobile, and one that can be on your person that blocks 5G. Our water filtration systems from Aquitaire, 1, 2, 3 or 4 bedroom houses there for soft or hard water that take away 99.9% of all the impurities in your water. Also, if you're heading over to blueblocks.com, BLUBLOX, you can get, or .com, you can get the best blue blocking glasses on the planet from Andy Mamp. These are made from an Australian optician rather than a shoddy factory in China. The lenses and you can actually give him your own frames if you want, and he'll make your own glasses. So if you've got the artificial light in the day, or if you want to actually go full out with the red blocking glasses, the red lenses at night, you've got them there too. Also, if you put in the code REVIVE, you're going to get 10% off them. And if you're heading over to essentialoilwizardry.com, I should say, and you put in the code REVIVE there for any of their products, you're going to get 10% off of the best essential oils on the planet. They actually should be on our site very soon. I've been trying to add them to our site, having a few things that go in the background. which is, just a few little issues in the background, but they should be on our site too very soon. And I'll be putting more products on the site, as well as the Wellness Carafe, the Flower of Life that structures your water. Be looking at other things from Ancient Purity. We've got some phenomenal products that we'll be getting on the site, as well as my book, which is going to be out imminently. We're just sorting the last few little things out, and it's coming out, the chronic fatigue solution, which is going to be for anyone you know who's got chronic fatigue or ME, or in fact any other health issue. It's going to give you the 3 big secrets to health that I learned, and how to heal myself from chronic fatigue and chronic illness. So anyone you know, I said before, it's going to be giving you complete basics of what to do and what's so important, which I will be elaborating on in a future book. But these are the keys, the fundamentals you need to know, and go through why I got into this, and why I do what I do, and where I went, and who I learned from, and what the fundamental topics are that you need to learn to heal yourself, the 3 big secrets, as well as other bonus material. So that's all coming out. Well, on to today's show, we have got a phenomenal guest, Dr Jolene Brighten from drbrighten.com, and we'll be talking all about her book Beyond the Pill, as well as other hormonal issues. So ladies, this is for you. Men, if you've got a lady who suffers from this, listen up, because you can give her some great information here. Mums, sisters, brothers, daughters, whoever, anyone you know who's suffering with this is a great episode for you. We go into lots of different areas of this, and we also answer some questions at the end. So without further ado, here's Dr Jolene Brighten. I'll see you on the other side.
Okay, how's that?
Yeah, perfect. It says sometimes, even though we're not recording in audio, sometimes it's nice to see each other, so you can just bounce off each other.
Yeah, totally.
Perfect. Nice. You've got the book in the background, Beyond the Pill. Brilliant.
Yeah, and sorry I'm late. I was clicking on the what my assistant put in the calendar, and it went to your website, and I was like, oh shoot, I'm supposed to be on Skype right now.
Yeah, no worries. It happens a bit. It's only a couple of minutes anyway, but I've got lots to dig into. How much time do you have roughly?
We have an hour blocked off. Is that enough?
Okay, well, it won't be, but we'll do what we can. So there's so much to talk about. So, I mean, I've got...
Let me look at my schedule.
It's all right. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
We do what we can. I've got some questions for you as well from people. But
cool.
First of all, just want to get into... I come across you on Instagram. A few people had saying, oh, look at Dr. Jolene Brighten stuff. It's really good. Especially when it comes to the female like hormones and the pill, etc. And I saw a post that you had on your Instagram. It's actually quite a new one. I was going through a few stuff while I was doing some research for the interview, and you put, and it's something that we say quite a lot. I don't know if you know Paul Check at all. So Mr. Paul Check. He's a health coach. He says illnesses aren't natural, aren't normal, they're just common. And you put in your thing, period problems are common, but period problems aren't normal. And so I think it's a really important thing for people, especially women, to understand that, because it seems like lots of women have got period problems. So just from your point of view, why did you start writing the book? Why did you write the book? Has it been like something you've been very passionate about for years?
Well, the funny thing is that I actually swore off hormonal birth control. I spent 2 years in a homeless youth clinic prescribing birth control, and I was fatigued on it. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with birth control. My husband reminded me that as I set out to write this book. Really, I mean, you don't write a book unless, you can't not write the book. You're like, I have to write this book. And really what it was about is I spent 10 years on the pill myself. I never had the informed consent. I didn't understand what it was doing in my body. I didn't understand what happened to my body when I came off of it. And this was so true for so many of my patients. So I wanted to write a book to help women understand their hormones, understand their body, advocate for themselves in their doctor's appointments, and also have the information they need about birth control. So at the end of the day, they could feel that they made the best decision for themselves, whether it is to go on birth control, to come off, to go another way. I wanted them to be supported in that.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's almost like scratching your own itch, which a lot of us do. And so, it's really important because, some of the stats we've got here, I've been through it before. Birth control in the UK was introduced in 1961 from Enoch Powell when he was health minister. It was like a family planning sort of association in the USA in 1960. And then by the year 2002, 11.6 million US women were on the pill. By far like one of the most popular medications they've got out there. They say reliability, yes and no, depending on who stats you look at. And they said it's currently prescribed to 3.5 million British women. So basically 1/4 of all British women from the ages of 16 to 49. And there's a lot of women that are out there on this. And sometimes it seems like the birth control pill is prescribed not just for birth control, it's prescribed for a lot of other things. So just in your research, what have you seen the birth control actually being prescribed for, and what are the symptoms that can come with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, birth control was really a revolutionary medication for just about everyone involved. So with women, we graduated college at higher rates. We started getting paid more. Like we could, for the first time in history, really control our fertility. And it was the first time the pharmaceutical company had a drug that didn't require a diagnosis. It didn't require someone to be sick. And so it was really revolutionary for everyone. And in this, I think that we have to talk about how it was designed. Now, it was designed for healthy, young, fertile females to space pregnancy or delay pregnancy. And what we've seen over the years is really this evolution in what I call it's become the pill for every female ill. So if you have headaches, you have migraines, you have irregular cycles, you have heavy periods, you have painful periods, you have period problems altogether, you're experiencing acne, there are symptoms, that are cyclical with mood, or really your doctor can't explain it, but thinks it's reproductive related, we just pass women birth control. And I think it's really important that women understand I'm not anti-birth control, but what I see as a really big disservice is passing a woman that prescription with no discussion as to why she has these symptoms. And so we see the delay in the diagnosis of polycystic ovarian syndrome, we call PCOS here in the United States. We see the delay in the diagnosis of endometriosis, and we often see that other conditions are allowed to arise while women are put on birth control and no one discusses with them what might be actually going on. And for me, I was really fed up with having to tell the 30-something-year-old woman who was now ready to have a baby that, in fact, you likely had polycystic ovarian syndrome this entire time. It's a cardiometabolic disorder. Now we have high cholesterol. We have all these issues, and it's a cause of infertility. And we really should have had this discussion when you were a teenager or in your 20s. And that's something I think women, myself included, have never been given all the information about how birth control works. A lot of people don't realize it actually works on your brain. And yes, it's for the reproductive tract, but it actually works by shutting down brain-ovarian communication. And we saw that in 2019 in Scientific American, it was Dr. Kissling who made a really profound and true statement. And that is that long-term menstrual suppression via birth control is the largest uncontrolled medical experiment on women in history. Like we've never seen anything like this before. And I think it's really important that everybody lets that sink in, because there are issues that come up when women take birth control. It was, introduced in the 50s, widespread in the 60s. And since that time, women have complained of things like mood swings, depression, hair loss, acne, digestive issues. I mean, the list goes on. And clinicians and even researchers have lined up to dismiss women's stories and to dismiss what they're saying. And in reality, we don't have a ton of research. We do have research, but in some of these areas, like, what is the long-term impact if I put a 14-year-old girl on birth control and she never ovulates and she comes off when she's 50? Like, what does that do to her brain, her bones, her heart? Like, there's the systems, the things that keep us alive, but also what does it do to her relationships? What does it do to her, as a career-oriented or family-oriented or do all the things kind of woman? These are questions that, women are asking that research has yet to provide answers to. And we're often told Just be grateful you have it. Don't question it. Take it and say thank you. And we're seeing new generations of women saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to ask for more information. We're going to tell our stories. We're not going to be silenced in this. And we're going to demand for better iterations in birth control.
I know you said so many things, so we can go so many different ways with this, because, I having dealt with lots of women myself who've been on this since like they were 16 for 10, 15 years, and you think like you're just shutting down your body's natural cycles and everything's going up chemically in doing this. And as you mentioned there, it's the brain connection. Also, how it can affect people's guts. It can affect the males that they choose in terms of relationships. There's a lot, and then you've got to see what happens with these drugs when they're combined with other medications. And so it's a whole sort of like it's almost like a shitstorm, as went for a better word, in terms of like understanding. And as you said, like these problems aren't normal. So it's like where do women start? Because look, we're going to go into a few different options as well, because today, everyone's also like diet these days. Nutrition is almost like a religion.
Yeah. It's always been.
Yeah, well, it's always been, but now it seems to be like even more fanatical because like veganism, then you've got carnivore, and then you've got paleo and keto, and it's like, how about you just eat real food and let's just see what goes on there. So this is one of the things, because first of all, just because we go into it, I've listened to you speak before, and there's lots of really interesting things you said about them. Actually, the 1915 trials where they showed even low doses of it shut down the brain, ovulating communication, and how it can disrupt the endocrine system. And then you also mentioned how all these women that are taking these pills, what they do a lot of times when they're on these, they go to the toilet, both number 1 and 2, and it ends up in the drinking water, or it ends up in the system, and then everyone's taking them. So is that then affecting the men as well, and then fertility overall? I mean, where do we even start with this? So, so just for people out there, because I want to get into this and how it's messing people up and what it can do. But in your opinion, what can people do? Because we'll get onto it first of all. What can people do if they don't want to take the pill? What are some great options out there? Because it's all good saying like, oh my God, this is related to this is related to that, and we can get into that, which we will. But what can women do if they don't want to go on birth control or synthetic birth control? What are some other things they can do?
Yeah. So Chapter 13 of my book is dedicated to non-hormonal birth control options. It's interesting because I've had some women write me and say, I'm so disappointed that you didn't talk about hormonal IUDs or depot shot. And I explain to them, any time I'm talking about progestin, that's synthetic progesterone, that applies to those contraceptives. But the vast majority of research we have is on the pill because it was the first contraceptive to step on the scene. Now, in terms of non-hormonal birth control options, we have barrier methods. It's about the time when everybody rolls their eyes and is like, condoms, nobody likes condoms. But let's recognize that no form of hormonal birth control protects you against sexually transmitted infections. So even if you are on the pill, the patch, the ring, the IUD, any of these things, you may, depending on your sexual activity, your status, your relationship type, you may also need barrier methods anyway. So there are condoms. There are cervical caps. That's another barrier method that, anytime we talk about birth control, understand that every form of birth control comes with side effects. And some of those side effects are getting pregnant. So you have to weigh what is best for you. And that's really what I advocate for is informed consent on the individual level. Cervical cap, higher risk of pregnancy. So if you're like, I cannot get pregnant, it's probably not going to be the best method for you. And if you're a woman who does not have a history or currently have painful periods or heavy periods or endometriosis, your copper IUD would be your best bet. That is the highest efficacy rate. That means not going to get pregnant with the lowest amount of side effects. And in fact, the copper IUD, women report the greatest amount of satisfaction. This is the contraceptive that women mostly love. Who doesn't love it? Women who already had heavy painful periods, it gets worse. And there is some speculative research that it may release copper systemically, and we really need more research to understand who's susceptible to that. And for that, I say, anytime you're going to have a medical intervention of any kind, and especially in reproductive health, track your cycle for a month to 3 months, get baseline lab testing, and then follow up with that, because we really need to be evaluating what's true for us. Like, I will, in this conversation alone, say a lot of things that are true, but they're not necessarily going to be true for everyone.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing we've seen is that we had the FDA approved Natural Cycles. Natural Cycles was actually approved in the Netherlands before the FDA in the United States approved it as the first femtech contraceptive device. It leverages fertility awareness method, which is not rhythm method of like, oh, I ovulated. Like, we don't ovulate every single day, the same day every single month. And so instead, it's looking at your temperature and it's plugging it into a mathematical algorithm to predict when you're going to ovulate. With that, we are most successful when we also are paying attention to our body, our symptoms, our cervical mucus, and fertility awareness method really rivals hormonal contraceptives in terms of its efficacy rate when it's done perfectly. And that's the thing, is that when we talk about different contraceptives, there's perfect use and there's typical use. And the typical user of the pill, it actually gets pregnant way more often than what we're told. When it comes to IUDs, there is no user error. It's placed in IUD, but understand that there are a percentage of women who can get pregnant with these. Nature does find a way. But I think it's a really interesting time to see that, like, we've got Natural Cycles and Daisy. We've got these fertility monitors. We can start predicting when we're going to ovulate. And some women choose to couple that with barrier methods, or choose to couple it with some of these gels that are available that actually alter cervical mucus, makes it more difficult for the sperm to reach the egg. So that's really like the variety of what we see available these days. And this is why we're seeing more women advocate for more options, because compared to like the 1940s, that's a lot of options. But where we're at currently in 2019, I'm like, I think we could do better.
I also think that, there's one thing I want to say, that withdrawal, I've heard that in research, and they said that it's got like a 95+% success rate. So like even just with withdrawal, which is, people think that it wouldn't have that such a rate, but 100%. Well, if you're doing it correctly, and also if the lady's not ovulating. But one of the things I say to people, if we're dealing with healthy individuals here, then yes, but there's almost a fertility clinic on every corner that there wasn't in 1940. And people are super. I want to get into this with you, but we call it. Obviously, like modern people in this modern world, well, it's almost like, I say this quite a lot on the show. It's almost like being exhausted is a badge of honor. I work this hard, I don't go to sleep, and people are wondering why they can't get pregnant, not why they can. And they're not eating the right food, they're not sleeping, not getting the right exercise, too much. Well, I have one that's blue light, too much blue light, and on and on and on. And I was saying, like, most of the people I do, it's like you're doing well to get pregnant. When they come and work with us, I'm sure with you, it's amazing how quickly they can fall pregnant when they're actually relaxed and doing things differently. It's why people go away and they seem to fall pregnant when on holiday. No stress, sleeping properly, good nutrition, relaxing. And so, like, would you say, like, this is what I always say, like, the fertility clinics, they're just printing money these days. So would you say, do you advocate just withdrawal with people that are monitoring these things? Would it be something that you'd be like, as long as you're doing it properly, you can both enjoy each other, and it's something that you would say, as long as you're doing it properly, you give that a go?
Well, when we look at the science, the withdrawal method, I was shocked. Like, so as doctors, we're like taught, no. And when you get into the science, there is a high efficacy rate. But, the concern I have is that if a woman is like, there's absolutely no way I can get pregnant, like, this is very different than, a married couple stable in life that are we get pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
But is that, this is a method that takes the control out of women's hands, and you have to trust your partner in that. And there is evidence that semen does live in pre-ejaculate, or what gets called pre-cum, and that is a possibility. There's also evidence that, like, it's not as much as we've been led to believe in our 9 non-scientifically accurate sex ed classes. And so, depending on your life circumstances, withdrawal method, during your fertile window, or what gets called the pull-out method as well, And I talk about in this book, in my book, Beyond the Pill, like that might be a method that you and your partner choose. But if you're a woman who says getting pregnant is not an option, then I wouldn't advocate for that, because a woman is no longer in control. And so again, it comes to those individualized factors and like why you're doing what you're doing. But, to your point about infertility, part of that is that we are delaying pregnancy. Like we used to get pregnant once upon a time at 16, like we were married and having babies, and then it was our, teenage or later teenage years, then our 20s. And now we're seeing more women are delaying pregnancy and trying to conceive until after 35. And I hear from so many of my patients who are like, if I knew how difficult it was to get pregnant this entire time, like you have to time it right. They're like, I don't know that I would have used hormonal birth control. Instead, I would have rather understood how my body worked and then what my options were to work with my body. And what most of us got was a story of, if someone looks at you, you might get pregnant. Like you could just get pregnant at any time. We're not fertile throughout the entire month. There's really only this week window where we can get pregnant. And it's really been, in a lot of women, like the patients I've worked with and women who write me in their stories, I realize that it's something that has been very disempowering for women. And it was a reader who wrote me and said, I feel like everything was set up to control my body, and that I was told like that my body was like broken. That's why I have symptoms, and that I could get pregnant so easily. And then I have to take this medication every day, which then muted my entire reproductive system. And it's interesting just to hear these stories, as much as we celebrate that we have access to birth control, to also hear women saying, and I was misinformed, not just in sex ed, but my doctor misinformed me. Some women saying, I feel like my doctor purposely misinformed me to coerce me into using this medication because they were afraid I would get pregnant. And I don't know that that's exactly what's going on, but it's an interesting thing, and a thing I think we need to pay attention to in medicine if women are feeling this way.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Jack Cruz is saying, I listened to him last week, he was saying, and my dad said the same thing, is like, when we were younger, he had to be more careful of that, because I feel like everyone was a bit more healthy. Like, everyone's so stressed these days, falling pregnant, people come off the pill and they think, I'll fall pregnant in a weekend or a month. It doesn't happen that way. They have to line, and both partners have to be doing things right. And so just quickly, like in your experience, have you noticed that your clients that have had long-term exposure to the pill have found it more difficult to fall pregnant after, like when they've come off of it? I know you talk about something called post birth control syndrome. Like, would that be one of the side effects? And what are the side effects of post birth control syndrome?
It's really interesting when it comes down to the fertility discussion, because I have seen that women who have used the pill long term do struggle to conceive later in life. But is it because the pill or hormonal birth control caused this? Well, we don't have any studies to show that, and it's pretty complex. So first thing is, why did they get put on it? If they got put on it because of regular periods, it may be that they had polycystic ovarian syndrome or hypothyroidism this entire time, two conditions that are associated with infertility. There are studies that show the younger you're put on birth control for painful periods and the longer you stay on it, the higher the probability you'll be diagnosed with endometriosis, also a leading cause of infertility. So we can't say that birth control caused it, but it did mask the issues that would have led to fertility and perhaps delayed her getting access to the healthcare that she needed and getting the interventions to preserve her fertility. The other issue is that, as I talked about, women are delaying. So why do we take birth control? To delay pregnancy. And with that, as we age, our production of CoQ10 declines. CoQ10 is an antioxidant that's highly protective of the ovaries and very important for mitochondrial health, which are concentrated in the ovaries, these little powerhouses that generate our energy.
It's really important for the heart as well, right?
Super important for the heart and for the brain. Yeah. And then, you're on a medication that's also depleting that. So birth control depletes CoQ10. It depletes vitamin E, vitamin C, other antioxidants that are involved in protecting the ovaries. It depletes folate and B12. So these are two B vitamins that you need before you ever conceive. It's why we saw one iteration of the pill actually came with folic acid in it. And it's why it's recommended that any woman who's sexually active in her reproductive years be taking a multivitamin or prenatal to ensure she has folate. We know that the outcomes for baby are very poor if mom's folate status is compromised. And so there are all of these nutrients that birth control is depleting that our ovaries and our eggs require to be as healthy as possible. Now, can we say birth control caused that issue? No, because it was indirect, and it's a correlation with this. And we're not really at a place to be able to say that birth control caused infertility at all. And I think that when we understand all of the confounding variables in this, then we can start to understand that, like, yes, birth control could be involved, but maybe not in the way that we're thinking. And one hypothesis that I have, that other researchers have, like Dr. Sarah Hill is a researcher studying women's brains and hormonal birth control, and she has said this as well, is that when we're on birth control, it actually alters mate selection. So if we are selecting for a mate who is more genetically identical to us, and when we come off birth control to try to have a baby, that might be what's going on. It's we actually are mismatched with the right mate, genetically speaking, to have the most viable offspring. Now, I'm not saying go divorce your husband or break up now or anything like that, but these are more, and I understand that what I say is very inconvenient. It's very inconvenient to receive this information. And trust me, as a woman who did the pill for 10 years, and I'm super grateful. I'm a first generation college student, the first woman not to get pregnant before my 20s in my family. I come from a giant Hispanic family. And so this was a really, really big deal to me to have this tool. But I also look back at some of my relationships that I had while I was on birth control, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I would have dated that guy. And I even look at, and it's right. It's like, it's hindsight's 2020. We can always say these things. I could be like, it wasn't me, it wasn't him, it was the pill. But I do look back at, like, what we know from the research of how we select mates, and part of it's pheromones. We can go deeper in that, but also part of it is facial structure. And so for anybody who's ever seen Beauty and the Beast, and there's Gaston, and he sings about how beautiful he is, that is that kind of archetype of a masculine, higher testosterone, protector of the tribe kind of archetype that we would select for. However, when we're on birth control, we actually like a more feminized male face and structure. And so it's very, very interesting as we look at all of that, is that there's so much at play. I don't know that we'll ever be at a place to say that birth control did indeed cause infertility, because there's so much more going on. Like, there are reproductive endocrinologists who are engaged in research and have reported that endometrial lining can be thinner. We know this. Okay, so why does birth control help those heavy periods? Well, because of those synthetic hormones and downregulation of receptors that we thin the endometrial lining, the lining of the uterus where baby has to implant. As I talk about in my book, you want to think about it. I think about it like, do you want to snuggle in a comfy down comforter, or do you want to be on the floor? And like, what would you choose? And so if we think about the fertilized egg, it wants that comfy down comforter.
Unless you're Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, unless you're Japanese. But we want, there's been preliminary data showing that perhaps that endometrial lining may not recover when women come off of birth control. And so it isn't something where we need to vilify birth control. We need to tell every woman to get off of it, but we do need to be asking these questions. And I think we need to go a little bit into what woman is susceptible and what woman is not susceptible, so we can have a better education around contraceptives. It's the same with post-birth control syndrome. So to answer your question, post-birth control syndrome is the collection of signs and symptoms that arise about 4 to 6 months on average coming off of birth control. It can come on before then. It can come on much later. If it comes on much later, it's usually a woman had symptoms. She put up with them until she couldn't put up with them. And it really can show up in any system in the body, because every system of your body has hormone receptors. Every one of your natural hormones impacts every system of your body, which means synthetic hormones, they get to do that too. And so we can see new onset of neurological issues like brain fog, migraines, headaches. We can see issues with skin. So rebound of androgen leading to cystic acne. It's not always PCOS. It can sometimes be just brand new, comes out of nowhere seemingly for her. Rashes, hives. I've seen psoriasis and eczema after women come off birth control. These are autoimmune conditions. We understand there's there's a study out of Harvard that if you have a family history of Crohn's disease, you spend 5 years or more on birth control, you have a 300% increased risk of developing this autoimmune condition of the gut, which is really it really demonstrates how much birth control impacts your gut health, from disruption of the kind of bugs that grow in your gut, your mouth, and your vagina to intestinal hyperpermeability. And so there's a lot of ways that birth control impacts us. And if we know this and we understand this, we can take action to protect our body while we're on it, advocate for ourselves in our doctor's office, get the right lab testing, and evaluate, is this form of birth control really best for me? Some women will find that they just switch pill formulations and they do much better. Other women will go from a pill to an IUD and they do much better. And so we have to start understanding, how can we educate and inform women so they can avoid birth control side effects, they can be more successful on it, and select the contraceptive that's going to be best for them.
Yeah, it's 100% about getting all the information out to people so they can make an informed choice. I mean, you mentioned there about the gut as well. I mean, I've heard you say before that that it can cause absence of sounds in the bowel, which can be a sign of degeneration of the nervous system, which can then give you tell you that you're early signs of neurological degeneration, so like issues with the brain. And it's a huge thing for people, if you start to get neurological degeneration early. And you touched on you touched on so many things there, Dr. Brighten.
Well, let's talk about that real quick, because this is something that I think is really fascinating, is that the natural progesterone that you make after ovulation actually helps with you forming the myelin sheath. So everybody's seen those ugly orange extension cords. Why is that orange little plastic layer there? So that electrical conduction isn't diffused. It goes straight to the source. And with that, that's what the myelin sheath does. And we require estrogen and progesterone. What we make, birth control cannot mimic these in terms of neurological health. But in addition, nutrients like B12, which are being depleted by hormonal birth control. And so, sometimes I'll hear doctors say, well, there's no evidence that says birth control causes this. And I'm like, but we can reverse engineer what we know about physiology and go back and say, well, this is what we know hormones do for us. You don't have those hormones while you're on birth control. As much as doctors like to say, it's exactly what your body makes. No, it's not. You can't patent what the body makes. So just like from a business perspective, shut it down. That ain't even right. And from a biochemical perspective, they are structurally different. You can see them and they are structurally different. But in that, if you have nutrient depletions alone, that can impact neurotransmitter synthesis, that can impact neuroplasticity, and also nerve conduction and nerve health. And so it isn't like that I can say birth control directly causes neurological degeneration, because like I said, despite the 100 million women worldwide taking hormonal birth control, we barely have research to understand, does it actually do this? So no, we're not in a place where we can say causation. But at the end of the day, I don't care whether there's a study or not. If I have a patient in front of me who's struggling, who's having issues, it is my due diligence to work it up in every capacity and to ensure that birth control isn't the hindrance in her healing process.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, also, a lot of times, who's going to fund these studies? Do they really want to get the results to them? And also, statistics mean nothing to the individual. If you're dealing with someone, they've got an issue, and I don't care how many scientific papers say that's not true. Well, when I eat this, I feel like this. It's like, well, and that's where it comes. This is why this is why I always say to people, as much as everything we're saying here, and you've probably experienced it millions of times. When I've had women come to me at Ryan, they want to put me on HRT, they want to do this, they want to give me that. It's like, okay, first of all, let's just try this. Let's start eating real food. Let's start going to bed earlier, relaxing, doing things you enjoy. Let's start doing exercises that instead of depleting your body's sources and life force, we start giving you life force. Let's do all the things that we can do, mental, emotion, and everything. All of a sudden, oh my God, Ryan, I feel so much better. This is gone. I've got testimonials through the roof. I'm sure you have. It's like funny that when you start to give the body what it wants and needs, it starts to find balance. And look, some people's issues are going to need a few more tweaks than others, and it's going to take a little bit longer, especially if someone's been on things for a long period of time. I always say, everyone's different, and so you need it. But when you start giving, I always say, you don't see these symptoms of the tribal women that are researched, or the women that are, we call it, as the holistic health coaches, the syndrome we call Russian women syndrome, where women are basically, and I talk about this, and I don't know where the world's going today. I've said it a million times on the show, and I'll say it again. I don't care if we're in 2019, they're trying to tell us that men and women are the same. We're not. We never will be. Obviously, we're more similar than we are different because we're human. But men have got
but you bring up an interesting point, because what you said earlier at the top of this, and if anyone missed it, go back, rewind, listen, is you said women are given birth control and then they're given other medications along with that. And those medications were not necessarily ever studied for a woman's body. And I think that is one of the most eye-opening things for people to recognize, that much of women's medicine has been tested on a man and call it the same in a woman. And as we, as more reports and research is coming out on medical gender bias and gaslighting that happens, we are really starting to understand how medicine has gotten it wrong, that we don't actually respond in the same way. And it is one of those things that I don't know why.
How could we? But how could we? Like, because it's in. I always say to people, I say to my girls, you guys, we've got a far more robust hormonal profile than you. We're I always say a million times, we pick up trucks, you can fuck us to bits, eventually we break down. You guys are more like Ferraris. You look fantastic, but once a month you have an issue and you need special care. And because you're meant to have enough resources on board for two people, not just one, you've got you're like the crown jewels. Every tribe took care of the women, not because it was sexist, but it's because they knew that without you guys, the tribe stopped. Yeah. It's gone. And so when you mentioned that a minute ago, and I want you to carry on, but when you mentioned CoQ10 and depleting thing, not getting enough B vitamins as well, straight away my mind goes to vegans. Are you getting enough vitamin B12, etc.? And also talking about other things that deplete brain function, etc. Then you're mixing these things with statins. People are on statins. Yeah. And what's that doing to the body and the heart and everything else? So yeah, I just carry on. But is this a few? You hit on so many points there. You haven't even talked about what can occur in terms of statistics on death rates and making testosterone unavailable and how it impairs muscle gains and blood clots, etc. But it's just carry on with what you were saying. But I just wanted to get that in there for people. We're not the same. It's giving. It's just really simply as well. You give an average man, just to put this in simple terms, you give an average man 2 pints of beer, and you give an average woman 2 pints of beer. Who's going to be more drunk? Just because I mean it's very simple. I'm not saying, but it's just our bodies respond and take different amounts of things. So how can giving a medication, some sort of dose to a man, be exactly the same as a woman? And especially because they've got so much more going on when it comes to you are, as I said before, the crown jewels, and without everything going on, you need. And it's why I always say to them, when you take away this, it's almost like women trying to. I always say, because in today's world, you've got single mums, and they want to be obviously a beautiful wife and the mother and money, and just to do everything that maybe back in the day they weren't expected to do. You say you're almost living like a man in a woman's body in terms of biologically, and then you get these issues. And when you take a step back, and it's the same with men as well that are completely stressed, but especially a woman, when you take a step back and let the body calm down and do less, it's amazing the results you can get just from sometimes doing simple things without even, because sometimes, I mean, you might have experienced this as well, and I'm sure you have, sometimes you test and you can get results that show symptoms rather than the root cause because there's so much going on. They're not doing a million and one things right. When you start doing the things right, then you can start getting to the root cause. I mean, I know I've waffled on there a bit, but it's just you've hit on so many things. I think it's really important for our listeners to understand that. First things first, and then you can look at these because there's lots going on. We need to mention the gut, then the brain, and then what you mentioned. Oh, the other thing I want you to go deeper into as well. You put it in your book. It's in the section, the pill and your bad boyfriend.
Yeah.
But if you're picking the wrong mate, or say the wrong mate, or you're attracted to the wrong person because you're on it, that I mean, what statistic? I think it was 1 in 4 women that come off of it end up separating from their partner. Was that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we see that there are higher divorce rates initiated by women who have been pill users. So it's a very interesting thing. we know that the libido goes down while women are on birth control. It's what I say is the sneaky way that it really works, is that you don't want to have sex.
Yeah.
However, there are some studies that say that when women come off of birth control, they actually report more sexual dissatisfaction. Now, maybe that's because they're afraid of getting pregnant, or maybe there's something else going on, because what we have come to understand is that when you're on birth control, women actually select for mates on different criteria. What are they more interested in? They're more interested in how much money they make and how smart they are. Now, that's right away where I've had people say to me, like, you shouldn't share that because that just makes women sound like gold diggers and terrible people if they're on birth control. I'm like, no. From an evolutionary perspective, this is the modern way of finding that provider mate.
That's when they're off. Yeah, that's when they're off.
That's when they're on.
Oh, when they're on.
Off,
Right.
Yeah. And so when they're not on birth control, they actually, how attractive your mate is matters more. So if you're on birth control, you got a man who makes money and is really smart, but you come off of birth control and you're not interested, it may very well be because now you're smelling his pheromones. You're smelling that MHC complex. Like, we like to think that we're these really advanced creatures, but at the end of the day, we're just animals. And all of this is, and a lot of things that you've been saying, I'm like, this is what we're talking about is an evolutionary mismatch. Like the way we run ourselves in modern society is an evolutionary mismatch with people will say like, no, we've had time to adapt. Really? Because in my lifetime, like I have gone from having no internet to having a phone in my hand, a computer in my hand at all times. Like that is a big disruption. And I don't think that like we can celebrate it and we can also question it. There's no long-term research either on like what the heck happens when you spend most of your day on social media. The other thing that you spoke to is the evolutionary mismatch, which is to be a woman in a society set up by men who are cyclical in a 24-hour period. They are not cyclical over a month period like we are. And we try to match that productivity. We try to match our way of living to that. That is also an evolutionary mismatch that can burn us out in all of this. But, to the point of mate selection, I mean, it is very interesting. Like, so they did a study where they had women actually, come in, they had all these screens and they were like, manipulate the faces however you want them to look. And they changed men's faces and changed women's faces. And all these women off of birth control changed every male's face to be more attractive to them, which was, again, Gaston, which is that strong jawline and all of these things. And then they put half the women on birth control. 3 months later, they have them come back. They start to alter the faces again. Women's faces mostly left alone. Men's faces, the jawline decreases, more feminization. And what researchers think is that when we are on birth control, we're actually attracted to people who are more genetically similar to us. So that's that major histocompatibility complex that we smell in pheromones. So this is where everyone goes, ew, because research is like, well, you're on birth control, you're more likely to be attracted to someone that's like genetically your cousin than genetically diverse. And why is that? Well, the speculation is that because then, if this is mimicking pregnancy, and please everybody, like birth control is not smarter than your body and mimicking pregnancy. But if that is like what's going on is that we're not ovulating and it's that pseudo pregnancy, then we would actually want to be around our family and people that would protect us. So we'd be selecting to hang out with people who are more genetically similar to us. And so this is very interesting because they've done t-shirt studies. And if you're on birth control, you select for someone, you smell it and you're like, oh yeah, like that smells good. Turns out they're more genetically similar to you. You're off of birth control, you select for someone who's more genetically different, which means your baby, your potential offspring, has a more robust immune system, which means more likely to survive in the environment. And it's basically giving them a genetic advantage. And so this is something that like we have to start looking at. I mean, I could talk for like 3 hours just on how birth control may be impacting our romantic relationships, our relationship with children, how we are as bosses, how we are as employees, like, because there are these subtle things going on, but nobody really wants to talk about this because there are people who say like, we can't talk about the differences of male and female brains because that is going to put women at a disadvantage and it makes us look weaker. And like, we can't talk about that with birth control because that's going to hurt women's ability to get jobs. And, at the end of the day, we really have to stand back and look at how we have survived as a species. It is by working together.
100%.
There are differences, but the differences doesn't make anyone the lesser or anyone weaker. They're meant to be compatible so that as a species we survive.
It just is 100%. I always say to people, like, you don't have the sun without the moon. You know, we got fire and water, you know, left and right, and all this, like, we want to be the same. It's like, no, a woman isn't meant to be everything a man is. She's meant to be everything a man isn't, and vice versa. And this is why, like, this whole thing about we don't need men and all this, it's like, really? It's like we've always been better. It's just like we've always been better together. I don't understand it. Like, this is why people, like, back in the day, relationships are very hard nowadays because of a million things. You know, you can swipe, and he said everyone's hormones are over the place, and being a selfish stream of everyone's got to work harder and longer, and you'll find fulfillment in success rather than actually, you know, having a family and being happy. And like, it baffles me when, like, throughout all of history, men and women have done better when they've worked as a team. And, you know, teamwork makes the dream work. And I think it's so important to hear that from, you don't have to be anything that the other sex is. You need to work as a team, and that's what it is. It complements each other. It's why, like, for example, when you do have a child, you know, the mum's like, no, come here, be careful, you know, let's make sure, whatever. And the dad might be like, oh, he'll be fine, you know. And it's like, you need that push and pull and tug, and it's really important. And this is something you mentioned there as well about how it can affect jobs, how it can affect your life. Even with men, you know, they've noticed that men's testosterone has been dropping greatly the last 50 to 60 years. I mean, obviously, probably to do with poor food, probably less sleep, being overly stressed. But wondering if it's because
lots of xenoestrogens in
the
the environment.
Lots of xenoestrogens, SLSs, parabens, and wonder if it's because, well, maybe is it because women are choosing to procreate with men that are less alpha males or less testosterone? Could that be something that's going on?
There are researchers who are wanting to answer this question of what happens when women are procreating with men more genetically similar, not just to not just to their relationship, but what happens to those children. Like, as we see the rise of autism, allergies, autoimmune disease, like, everything has to be on the table for us to question. And so just to be really clear for everybody, I am not saying birth control caused any of those things, but it is something that there are things that we are told as a society that we can't question and we can't talk about. And that is one of the most anti-science statements there could be, is like, don't question that, because this was part of the women's movement. And yet there are researchers saying we do have to question this. You know, on the flip side, there have been studies, and men, so with exotic dancers, they're less apt to tip women as much if they're on birth control, and women who are ovulating make more money. And that is something that, like, you know, it's because of what men are picking up on and what men are perceiving.
It's so funny that I wonder, it's weird because you think, as you said, we think about this elaborate organism and that we're above nature and stuff. And obviously those things are impacting us. And some of my friends have said to me before, you know, we adapt and change. I'm like, well, it's just because it's 2019, we've got the internet, doesn't mean you get rid of tens of thousands of years of instincts. And it's weird because a girl that's on is it a stripper, or even just a normal girl that's on birth control, you come up and you see her in a bar, or you see her out, or you see her in the yoga class, or even a stripper, she might get less money because she's less inclined to be attracted to someone, so therefore she's not as forthright. Whereas if she is, and she sees someone and she comes on, maybe she'd be acting more sexy or something. I mean, it's not me trying to be a male chauvinistic pig. I'm just saying, like, because, and as a guy, you're like, oh, she actually likes me. This is turning me on, and therefore you pay more money, you know, rather than someone who's maybe not, because they're, as you said, their natural instincts are being suppressed by the medication they're on, you know. And I think that, I mean, just trying to think through in my head, like some sort of maybe just common sense answer for that. You could probably see that in people, right? You know, especially, it's like the hard part about, I suppose, about not having birth control and using the withdrawal symptom is when you're ovulating, women are generally more horny, correct?
So testosterone rises, and that is evolution at its best, saying, let's get in the mood, let's capture some sperm. Those critters can live 5 or 6 days, and that increases our odds that when we ovulate, we'll be pregnant.
So yeah, I mean, this is why there's so many things, and I know we've only got a little bit of time left, so I'm going to just ask you a couple of questions. But just get into just for people out there, they need to look into this, how the birth control pill can affect the risk of blood clots and stroke, and increases in women that are smokers, particularly smokers after the age of 35. I think since the year 2000, death rates in women between the ages of 35 and 44 have increased, significant increase of women that use the birth control as a possible contributing factor. As I say, we have to look at possible possibilities. Talk about it may keep testosterone unavailable for women's physiological needs, causing long-term health problems, including sexual dysfunction. Lots of that people can look into. I just want to put it out there so people can go and do their own research and go and get your book, Beyond the Pill, and they can read it. I mean, follow you on Instagram at Dr Jolene Brighten, and your website is drjolenebrighten.com.
It's drbrighten.com. drbrighten.com.
En, yeah, not Brighton like the place we've got down here. En. So, couple of questions. So, I've got a question here from a lady that says, could you ask the doctor what she'd recommend for me? A stage 1 grade endometrial cancer. Everything removed, including ovaries and cervix, age 37, then she's now 40 years old. Cancer was hormone responsive. Would she recommend HRT? I can't tolerate bioidentical estrogen, so what would she suggest?
Yeah, I would recommend discussing with your doctor potentially using something like DHEA, which is a hormone that's made from the adrenal glands, and it's a precursor to testosterone and estrogen. So it won't, in women who don't tolerate estrogen or have had estrogen positive cancers, DHEA has been shown to be beneficial. It can help when it's applied topically in terms of strengthening the pelvic floor, urinary incontinence, improving libido, and it can help with a lot of the symptoms that we have postmenopausal. If you've had your ovaries removed, that's surgical menopause, so to speak. So what you would have went through late 40s, 50s, that's happened because of surgery, which was, depending on what was going on, was likely absolutely necessary. And so if that is your condition, you definitely want to check in with your doctor. And if you start any kind of hormone replacement therapy, including whether that's DHEA, testosterone, progesterone, definitely having that conversation with your doctor so that you can make sure that you're monitoring. So when we start it, yes, we need you to collect your own data, but having follow-up lab testing about 8 to 12 weeks later can make sure that you're staying safe on that. And then, of course, there's always the lifestyle therapies in terms of making sure that you're getting plenty of sleep, making sure that you're moving your body. There was a study that came out that showed, exercising 3 times a week was a significant treatment for hot flashes. So this is something that a lot of women, once they lose their ovaries or their ovaries quit, go through an experience. And so that is something that, can help with hot flashes, with sleep. And then, of course, fueling your body, having great blood sugar balance, making sure that you are eating lots of leafy greens and vegetables. The carnivore diet is the only diet that's rejecting vegetables all out that I've ever seen. But every other diet, nobody argues with the fact that we could eat more vegetables. But that will support your liver and your gut in estrogen metabolism. And for a long time, medicine thought we only make estrogen from our ovaries. And then it was, okay, well, we make DHEA from our adrenal glands, and that gets converted to estrogen. And as it turns out, our bones, our fat, other cells in the body are making estrogen as well. And so we really need a lot more research to understand the breadth of that, but we can engage in practices that we know optimize hormones overall, because those are the same practices that lend themselves to longevity and a healthy life.
100%. Everything you said there is perfect, and lifestyle obviously is huge. You need to get there. You need to get, we say, first things first. Another question, doctor, is lady comes in with, my daughter's always suffered with very intense mood swings. She didn't actually start her period until she was 18. Doctor's only answer regarding her mood swings was the pill. I'm desperate to get her off it. She's 32, has no children, and doesn't want children, at least not at the moment. She gets really low bad temper, really bad. and really high the opposite way, which I see as her normal happy self, I'm trying to get her to alter her diet too.
Well, we definitely want to get lab testing and partner with a doctor, especially when we're having significant mood swings like that. But starting your period at 18 is too late, and someone should have been working that up when she was 16. So two conditions that I'd say should be investigated. One is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which can result in an ovulatory cycle. So you're not ovulating. You don't have ample progesterone. Progesterone hits the GABA receptor in your brain, which is a neurotransmitter that helps you feel chilled out. But in addition, in PCOS, we have excess androgens. So we think of testosterone or male hormones, and too much of those, yes, we can have acne, we can grow hair on our face, but we can also feel very enraged. And so that is something definitely worth investigating as well. And then looking at, could this potentially be hypothyroidism? So hypothyroidism is very, very common in women, and a very common reason to see irregular periods or delayed onset of menstruation. So 18, that's about 2 years too far in terms of when she should have been worked up. And I'm so sorry and yay for her having an awesome mom who's advocating for her. But getting a TSH, a free T4, a free T3, TPO, and thyroglobulin antibodies are really the minimum to evaluate what's going on there. And it may very well be that she's hypothyroid, she's having anxiety, and that's manifesting more as rage. It could be that the adrenal glands are also starting to struggle. They're kicking out catecholamines, which are fight or flight, and you want to fight kind of hormones when they hit the brain. And it also could be that there's something more is going on. Like if it's autoimmunity, well, that is an inflammatory condition, and inflammation in the female brain can absolutely alter our moods as well. So I would say, get with the doctor, get lab testing, and work it up, because something is going on there. It should never be considered normal to not start your period until 18. And maybe it turns out that was normal for you, but the only way to know that is to work it up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think at the end when she says there, I'm trying to get her to alter her diet too. And I think diet and lifestyle, looking at that first as well, everything you said there, 100% agree with. And I think just altering, getting into that as well. I think it's something that, have to go there first so we understand. I always say to people, when we're getting tests, I always say, well, let's get the basics in place first, and then let's see what disappears. Because then when we test, we get the real results rather than going to. I did this once, and one place wanted me to work for them. They're like, this person come in, and they're like, right, we're going to get tested for this, and this. And I was like, do you agree? I was like, no, I don't agree. So why not? I was like, well, because they're eating cheese strings and frosted flakes and all this rubbish. Their body is in a completely dysregulated state. So I'd say, let's try and get them at a base level first, and then we can see what's really going on. It's the only thing I'd add, but 100% agree. The other one I've got here, I think last we've got time for maybe one or two more. Let's have a look. She said, lady says, I've got the Marina coil fitted, due to heavy periods. Should I get it out? Should I get it out? She's a bit of an older lady. I don't think I'll have periods anymore anyway, and I'm doing she's also doing like a holistic health program, and she's saying like, do you reckon the program will take care of it? Should I take it out, or do you think I'll have periods anymore anyway? She's a bit of an old lady. I think she's over 50 years old.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's definitely a misuse of hormonal birth control, is to leave a woman on it when she's postmenopausal. So, for every woman that's listening, and I talk about this in my book, is I say, like, if you got on birth control because of symptoms, work with your body for a good 3 months before you decide to transition off. And that means bringing in high quality foods, making sure that you've got the sleep dial in, all the lifestyle factors. So I go through all of that in the book. And, and that may also include supplementation, that's supporting yourself for a good 3 months before you make that transition off. If there is a risk of, there are women who have extreme periods to the point where they may need to have iron infusions to be able to bring up their iron levels again. If there's a risk of that, definitely talk to your doctor about, okay, what is a plan that if I come off and this happens, what can we do that doesn't mean placing another IUD? Because those are like 5-year shelf life, 3 to 5 years, depending on, the type that you have. And, and they might be able to say to you, okay, if you've done everything right and you're getting all the diet and the lifestyle pieces and you come off and then you have this very heavy period, maybe we want to bring on some bioidentical progesterone. Maybe we want to use a different kind of therapy to slow the flow while you continue to work on those things. We have to recognize that pharmaceuticals are designed to give instant gratification and to work immediately. They have a time and a place, but diet and lifestyle therapies can take longer because you're working with the body. And in doing that, it may not be that like you just do the same diet lifestyle practices for 3 to 6 months. It may be that you uncover things and you modify things as you're going through that process so that you enable your body to heal. But you have to be patient with your body. And sometimes women hear this stuff about birth control and they're like, I'm just going to jump off right now. Well, if you are someone who's in your fertile years, make sure you have a backup method, because getting pregnant while you're going through all this may not be the top thing on your agenda.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I always say to people, this is what you said there, as you go through things can change. We're like an onion, different layers peel back, and you can see.
Totally.
And if you've been doing things wrong for years and years, you can't do things right for a few weeks and expect it to be completely fixed. You need to go through a healing stage. And so, last question I've got for you, and then I'll let you go because I know you're very busy. So I've got a question here from actually she's one of my clients, because we've been dealing with her and she's been getting phenomenal results, but she's been dealing with some issues for a long time. And she says, I was pre-menopause at age 49, regular periods, but still starting to experience irregularities like longer than 5 days, sometimes heavy, barely anything there, or 1 day normal, the other 4 spotted. What can be done to prepare the body for the end of menstruation years ahead? Also, every test known to man has come up with nothing unusual for a woman my age, and yet I've been growing a thick beard. It's quite soul-destroying, aside from the nutrition which we've covered, and we're going through diet and lifestyle practices. What hormone imbalances can cause this, and what can I do about it? Problem started back in 2005.
Well, if your doctor hasn't been testing the correct androgens, that can be a bit of what is going on. So this is an important thing to understand. When it comes to androgens like testosterone, these are based on men, and an understanding there are doctors who understand that younger women will have higher testosterone. Now, we need to test total testosterone, free testosterone, sex hormone binding globulin, and DHT. DHT is the potent androgen that will cause that hair growth on your face. I'm sorry to say this, but there is nothing to get rid of that hair growth except for electrolysis or destroying the hair follicle. You can prevent more hair from growing, but what's already there, you have to destroy the follicle. Now, in that, if your doctor only tested total testosterone, and especially as we're in our later life, they may say, oh, well, you're at the top end of the normal range. You're normal. Well, no, because at like 48, that's not normal. Like that is elevated. In addition, we have to look at the bioavailable and the free testosterone, because that can be elevated. And most doctors will only look at testosterone. If you're someone who has symptoms and your doctor says your labs are normal, you may need to work with a naturopathic or functional medicine doctor that looks at your symptoms and your labs together instead of just looking at reference ranges. So that's a couple of things there, is making sure that you have the right lab testing. Now, as we transition into perimenopause and then subsequently menopause, we still rely heavily on our gut, our liver, our adrenal glands, and our thyroid to function optimally. And there is a chapter on every one of those in my book. And so you have to be supporting liver detoxification of these hormones, of gut excretion and kidney excretion of these hormones. When you go through menopause, your ovaries are designed to quit, your adrenals are not. So you're going to lean very heavily on them. And they're going to require you to go to sleep, to ditch bad relationships, and be more happy and less stressed in life. They also want good blood sugar regulation, which can be more difficult as we age, as mitochondria start to die and our tissues are changing. So anything you can do to help stimulate mitochondrial health. So yes, there's CoQ10, but there's also, making sure that you have lots of antioxidants, low environmental toxin exposure, ending your showers in cold water or doing cold plunges. Like, I hope everybody hears what I'm saying. This is all stuff that doesn't happen in a doctor's office. This is all stuff that you can be doing every day to really take those steps closer to health. And when it comes to excess androgens in women, there are lots of natural treatments that, don't have some of the side effects as medications, like saw palmetto, nettle root, eating pumpkin seeds and oysters, which are rich in zinc, can help with modulating those testosterone levels. And so really cueing in to, yes, there's the part that your doctor plays, but you have a personal responsibility in your health. And there is so much that you can do to really take the reins of your hormonal health and thrive in this life.
That's awesome. I'd say, that's really good, because you mentioned basically lots of every answer you put in there. You've had certain tests and certain things you can do, but you've mentioned lifestyle factors every time. It's what I need people to understand. Like the root of this, I always say to people, you don't hear of alligators with PCOS or rattlesnakes with gut issues. A lot of these are modern lifestyle issues because we're living outside of what nature intended. Excuse me. And we've actually done some really good work with Helen. She's in a completely different place from what she was before, so that's great. Is in terms of what little things that we can do to check. So thank you very much for the answer. That was awesome. Dr. Brighten, any so you've done Beyond the Pill. Any other books coming out in the future?
Well, Beyond the Pill just came out this year, so there are more books in the work. I have one book that I previously published, and I actually have another one I've written and I haven't published, and other ones that are brewing right now. So yes, there will be more books in the future. Right now, I wanted to be really aware that I didn't just drop Beyond the Pill on everybody, freak them out, and then be like, bye, I'm off to the next thing. And so I'm really trying to be present with women to support them on this journey, to make sure that they're getting their questions answered. And with what women are writing me and what they need next, there's definitely another book coming.
Yeah, 100%. It was really good. I'd say to anyone, go and read it, and it's great to get you on, and I'm sure we'll get you back on in the future, because as always, whenever you go into a topic, always more questions that come out of it. But thank you very much for giving us your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and when this goes out, I'll let you know how people respond, but I'm sure they'll love it. But thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries. So, guys and girls, that was Dr. Jolene Brighten. As I said before, you can find her on Instagram if you look for her under Dr. Jolene Brighten, and she's at www.drbrighten.com. Awesome information there. Could go so much deeper. I do actually want to get back on the show because there's so much more we can talk about there. It's really, really good to talk to someone who's got so much knowledge there. Not only going into it, answering questions. So before, there's lots of stuff we didn't even touch on because unfortunately we're just short on time. But I hope you got the gist of it, which was, yes, certain tests, etc. we need to get, but basics first, diet and lifestyle, making sure you're living a balanced life. Getting, as we always talk about, Dr. Diet right, the food you eat, Dr. Movement, the right exercises for you, Dr. Quiet, the right amount of introspection, and Dr. Happy, your purpose, and sleep, the right water, making sure your body's not overly stressed, making sure you're not rushing everywhere. We always talk about rushing women syndrome. Just try and relax and do less. And remember, to love yourself and make loving choices for yourself, and try not to get caught up in the rat race. What's the issue with the rat race is even if you stop racing, you're still a rat, and that's the problem. We need to get you to understand. You need to just slow down with a lot of things, and a lot of issues that come about from living outside of Mother Nature's rules and living outside that balance and pushing your body into stressful situations. So lots of great information there. Dr. Jolene Brighten will definitely be back on the show. She's brilliant. As I've mentioned before the show, head on over to www.reviveyourself.co for our articles. We've also got a shop there full of different supplements and products that I recommend. I wouldn't recommend you anything I wouldn't take myself. It's all top quality. All just whole foods, organic whole foods in concentrated form, come from the best places on the planet. If you are dealing with a chronic health issue and you're looking to get to the bottom of it, get to the root of it, and so you can start living life on your terms again, get your energy back, and whatever it may be, gut issues, skin issues, then hit me up at www.reviveyourself.com. If you click on the contact tab, or if you send me an email to ryan@reviveyourself.co, I will get back to you as soon as I can, and we can set up a call where we can discuss if and how we can help you, but I'm pretty sure we can. Otherwise, guys and girls, that's it for today. Got some great interviews lined up for you. But yeah, anyone you know who can benefit from this information, please share it with them. Like this, send it out to people. The more likes and shares and downloads we get, the more time I can put into it, the better guests I can get on. And also, if you can, go to our shop and buy supplements from us. That would be great, because it allows me it gives me some funds to float this thing, to put more time and energy into it. And we're also going to be on Patreon very soon. As I mentioned before, the book will be coming out imminently. So that's all going on. Otherwise, guys and girls, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
If you're struggling with gut issues, such as gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, and want to finally be able to eat the foods you love without the crippling after effects, then don't forget to head over to reviveyourself.co and pick up your free copy of The Healing Health Paradigm today.